Welcome to the latest edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast. My name is Jim Haig, and with me today I am very honored to have as my special guest from Hudson Catholic fame. Then from there, he went to the University of North Carolina, where he became a two-time All-American at Carolina, and then went on to have a great career in the NBA and as a player and as a coach, and also coached at the collegiate level. And it's none other than the man they call Little in Jersey City. It's Michael Corin. Michael, how are you today? Thanks for taking some time to talk to me.
Well, Jimmy, no problem. Love it. And I'm glad you remember my nickname. I only know people that know me from a long time ago call me Little now.
Yeah, no, well, that's the way you're known in Jersey City. Nobody calls you as Michael Corin in Jersey City. If you're walking around Jersey City, everybody calls you Little. So we're going to start there. How did you get the nickname of Little? Did it have anything to do with your brother?
No, actually, there were a lot of, you know how it is in Jersey City, Jimmy. I mean, back at Hudson Gardens where I grew up, there were a lot of Michaels. There were a lot of kids. You know, we played, we did everything. And all of a sudden, I forget who it was, they just started handing nicknames. And I was a tall kid, so they went the opposite way. They started calling me Little.
And just because of your height?
Yes.
Okay.
And if that was on a Monday, I'm telling you, by Tuesday, the whole neighborhood was calling me Little.
Do you know who started the Little? You have any idea?
I really don't know. I mean,
wow.
It was obviously a long time ago. I don't know. But like you said before, it stuck. And that's, I mean, if I'm out, you know, walking somewhere and someone calls me Michael, or, you know, I kind of don't really think about it. If someone calls me Little, I turn around because it's someone I knew from a long time ago.
Yeah, see, that's definitely, and it's somebody who's got to be considered a friend too, because nobody else is going to call you Little. So absolutely. Anyway, all right, let's go back to your childhood days. And you grew up in Hudson Gardens, like you said. And did you play every single sport as a kid? Did you play basketball, football, baseball as a kid growing up, or was it strictly basketball?
No, Jimmy, it was everything. Actually, I love baseball, and we used to go across the street to Dickinson when the weather was nice, and we'd get a game up. Like I said before, we had so many kids in the neighborhood. We'd go over there and we'd get a good game of baseball going. We played that. Then we'd go up to the middle of the projects and play football. Or we play tackle at Dickinson also in one of those fields, you know, around the school there. Basketball was, you know, we played that up in the rink, they called it, in the projects, and we played that. Then we'd go over to St. Joe's Schoolyard and play basketball. And then, like I said before, I got, you know, I was a tall kid at a young age, and I met my friend Stymie, who I know to this day, and he was coaching the biddy at St. Joe's where I went to grade school, and I started playing basketball and stuck, and you know, you talked about what I did before, so that's the way it came about.
All right, well, let's give him credit, because he's going to want to know why he didn't get mentioned in the first 5 seconds of the podcast, and it took you exactly 3 minutes and 23 seconds to mention Stymie's name, but his real name is Ron Steinmetz, and he's a legend in terms of his basketball knowledge from Jersey City, and boy, oh boy, was he a great youth basketball coach. Did it for a long time. So let's give him credit. And the two of you are still very close friends, correct?
Absolutely. He coached me several years, you know, in grade school, and we won a lot of games. And I'm wishing now, you know, as you look back, I wish he would have stayed with it and went to high school or whatever, because he, like you said, he had a brilliant mind, Steinman. And to this day, we would talk on the phone when I was a ball player, when I was a coach, about things, and he's very sharp. But he didn't do it for whatever reasons, but we're still so close. And he's my man, and you know, he's you know him, he's the best. He's a funny guy.
He's clearly the best. He's definitely a character, and incredibly now he's been mentioned in 2 of the podcasts, namely yourself and Mike Rooney, and you know what? He should be really proud that he got mentioned with both of those Jersey City legends. So, yeah. But Stymie's a legend in his own right. There's no question.
Absolutely. Well, his claim to fame was we had the summer leagues years ago, and our team was Stymies 5, and me and Stein lit it up for 72 one night,
You're kidding.
72. Yeah.
72
points. And I had the 70.
Oh, you had the 70. Oh, okay. I love it.
That was the joke. He loves that joke too, by the way.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You know, the St. Joe's court, I mean, you could shoot from the other rim. That, you know, it was so small. The games were like 188 to 184, you know.
Right. But here's the deal about that, and you're bringing that up right now, okay? Playing in that courtyard, you had to learn how to shoot on the metal backboards with the metal rim, with the metal nets at a very young age. And I don't know whether did that teach you playing at St. Joe's how to get a softer touch, because you had to learn to shoot the ball high off the backboard to get it in, and you had the metal nets, which not going to give you any give. So did that help you become a better shooter playing at St. Joe's courtyard?
I don't know if it helped me become a better shooter. I'll become a better bank shooter, because, like you said, you had to have if you could slam that thing off there and still fall in. So you had to have some touch. But what it helped me do was go to the rim, because a lot of times, one basket was 9.5, maybe 9 3/4. The other one was a little over 10. You know, so the score is 9-9. You're going to 10 points. You need a hoop, so you're going to cross over and go to the rim on somebody. You know? You're going to take a hit, I'm sure. But so it really helped me get to the basket, like using the baseline and reverse layups and things like that.
Okay, but it's safe to say that playing at St. Joe's. And you played there for many years, and I think you're the all-time leading scorer in the history of St. Joe's playground. I think Jimmy Boylan wants to lay claim to that, but I think it's you. And Mooney Ryan, I think he is too. What's that?
Jimmy Boylan put up some numbers over there too.
Yeah. So did Mike Mooney Ryan. He used to love to say that he broke all of your scoring records in St. Joe's courtyard, but I don't think so. Unofficial. Yeah, there was nobody keeping records back then. That's for sure.
Funny. That's funny stuff.
All right. So when you were in 8th grade, it was like the recruiting wars. There was St. Anthony's was very interested in trying to get you to go there. St. Mary's was very interested with Billy Cuccio as the coach, was trying to get you to get there. And you ended up going to Hudson Catholic with Joe Rocky Pope. What was it about? First of all, what was it like to be 13 years old and being the object of affection by 3 powerhouse schools in Jersey City?
Well, I didn't really kind of know. They really didn't talk to me. They would talk to like my mother maybe, or my brother, or get them involved a little bit. But actually, I almost went to Dickinson because it was so close.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
and they were pretty good back then.
They were good. Yeah.
They won the county championship, I guess, in '72.
Benny Allen would have teams, Dave Emanuel, Bobby Malacali. Yeah, I mean, I used to go watch them play all the time.
Right.
I got to know some of the guys over the years, great guys and really good teams. But my brother, who's 3 years ahead of me, Ryan, he went to Hudson.
Right.
And my mother just figured it was a good thing to follow in your brother's footsteps and go to Hudson yourself. So went to Hudson, no regrets, had a great time up there. Rocky did a great job with us.
Okay. Did you know Rocky at all from before you went to high school?
Not really.
Okay.
I got to know him obviously a little bit before I went to school there, but not personally really. But then obviously as a coach, got to know him, and he really treated his players well, and we won a county in '75, won the state in '76. So
right.
We had some good years up there.
All right, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. First, just talk a little bit about what was it like to play for Rocky. And you went from Stymie to Rocky Pope, which is really a great transition when you talk about getting coached by not only people who are legends, but also people who are characters. And what was it like to be able to be coached by Rocky, who used to sit on the sidelines with the cigar in his mouth? And
I don't think he'd be able to coach now, because I don't think I've ever seen him without a cigar.
Right.
I mean, whether it was in the locker room during a timeout.
It was never lit. It was never lit, but it just would be in the corner of his mouth, right?
But it didn't look good,
though. It didn't look good at all. Oh, my God. Oh,
Jim, I chewed up, and every now and then he would light it up and whether in the car with him, if he took you home, or he wanted the light went up. I don't know if he got nervous during the game or practice, but I remember seeing, like I said, without the cigar.
Yeah, I don't think so either, honestly. And even when he talked to me, he would talk with the cigar in his mouth. And sometimes I'd like joke with him and say, "Come on, coach, spit it out. Spit it out." And he goes, "No, not going."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He got at us a lot. He was a vocal coach. When practice, if he didn't think things were going well, he'd let us have it, and that was a very great attribute of him. We played with Jim Spronkle. You had, both Jimmy and I played it, so he knew he had some talent, but he didn't care. He let us have it if he had to, right. And we won a lot of games with him. We won a lot of games. So, all
right, tell me now. Back in your day, okay, it was very rare for a freshman to play varsity basketball. Very rare. Some schools, like I know St. Peter's Prep, Jerry Halligan would have refused to let a freshman play, regardless of how talented he was. I don't know if there were any freshmen that played. Maybe, did Sprockle play as a freshman? Maybe he did. I don't remember. I
was in grade school. Tim's a year ahead of me, so I really don't know. I'm sure he did. He was too good not to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll bring it up with him because he's going to be a guest with me next week. But incredibly, I had to tell him and remind him that you were going on with me before him. And he said, he says, well, I'm going to defer to him because he's younger. And I said, no, you're going to defer to him because he was better. And then he went, that hurt. But anyway,
Jim, when you do it, my back still hurts from carrying him those 3 years.
Yeah,
I learned that from him, actually, Jimmy. He used that joke with me, so I learned it from him. So I beat him to the punch this time.
Good, you did. You beat him to the punch in every way, shape, or form because you're going on with this before he is. All right,
that's good.
All right, so anyway, but for you to go to Hudson Catholic and play right away as a freshman, first of all, did you expect that at all? And second of all, how tough was it for you to be 14 years old and playing against kids that were basically 3 and 4 years older than you?
Well, first of all, no, I did not know if I would make varsity. I really did. But I knew it was going to be tough because I don't know if they were building the Untitled Center at St. Peter's College or something was going on down there. But a lot of the guys from St. Peter's would come up and play at Hudson.
Right.
And I got a chance to play against some of those guys.
Okay.
Elnardo Webster, Harry Laurie, guys like that.
Yep.
Dean O'Connell, Sammy DiPiano. I can't think of all of them. I hate when I can't mention everybody's name, but there was some really good players at St. Peter's College. And they would come up.
Well, Rich Rinaldi's a little bit too old for you, right? Did you play against him? No.
No, I don't think Rich was there.
Okay, but Bobby Fazzio is right around the same age as you, right?
Yes, Fazzio. I played against Fazzio at grade school.
Yeah, okay.
And he lives in my town, and I get to see him a lot. We always reminisce about things. Bob Fazzio's a salt of the earth.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I love him dearly. He's a good friend.
So I got to play with some of the. I'm kind of thinking, all right, hanging in there.
Kenny
Slappy?
Slappy?
Allen, remember Benny Allen? I think Benny was up there. Slappy was up there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
were you able to get Benny's hair into the gym though? That's the whole question.
yeah, they forced it in. But so I said, I'm hanging in with these guys. Maybe I'll be all right. So as it turned out, things worked out. But the one negative was I didn't have a locker.
Oh, you're kidding?
No, I didn't have a locker my first year, and I had to bring whatever I had. I had to bring it home with me every night. I had to walk back from Hudson to Hudson Gardens, and I would go down Rose Street to Baldwin Avenue, cut through to St. Joe's. We used to go. The kids would line up to go to school and get home. And some of those nights, Jim, come on, man, it was
freezing.
Degrees. It was cold. It was in winter, and then I had to eat real quick and I'd do homework. So it wasn't easy, but I'm glad it worked the way it did.
Okay. All right, yeah. So you had a very good 4-year career at Hudson Catholic, and like you said, you played in the 1975 County Championship game against St. Anthony's in And it still remains one of Coach Hurley's biggest losses, that he says it really hurts him that it got away from him and he lost that game. But that was the last county championship game that was played in the Jersey City Armory, and there were literally 10,000 people at that game because it was Hudson Catholic against St. Anthony. And what do you remember about that county championship game? You were a junior. How tough of a game was that, and how excited were you to play in a county championship game against St. Anthony's?
First 2 years we failed. We didn't make it, and then my third year, junior year, man, Jim, we were good. Hudson to play St. Anthony was a major game, and the first thing I remember when you just brought it up was coming up out of the locker room, up the stairs, and coming out on that floor. When my cousin Joe McCullough would bring me to St. Peter's College games, and I remember how crowded it got. But there was so many more people at the Hudson St. Anthony game that even the top was full.
Right.
And I've never seen anything like that. Nothing. I mean, it was a thrill to be able to be on the floor and have that many people watch us play.
Okay.
And
how wild was that? Were you nervous at all because there were so many people there? And obviously, like everybody that you hung out with and played basketball against, and there obviously was bragging rights were on the line, never mind Hudson County. But if you would have lost, I mean, I don't know whether or not you would have heard the end of it in Jersey City.
Of course.
Yeah. But, I mean, what was it all before that game, or did you feel pretty confident that you guys had a good chance to win?
Yeah, we were a confident bunch. I was too young to be nervous then.
Okay.
You get nervous when you get older, I was just dying to play, and we were well prepared for them. Rocky and Tommy Alicano, our assistant coach, did a great job preparing us, and we were ready for their press, and we got a couple buckets early, and then the game goes blank on me, to be honest, and I don't remember how the game went. I knew we beat them pretty good, actually.
You won by 8. You won by 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was a little bit more, but I think we were comfortably ahead. But 8's not that.
No, you were comfortably ahead in the second half. I guess you got up by as much as 15, and then they cut it, made a late run in the fourth quarter, but then you held it off, and you won. I think 54-48 is the final score. I think pretty much.
So it was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
So I mean, they were good. Come on. Greg Hall, Gary Robbins, they Coach Hurley, Hall of Fame coach. Come on,
yep.
They were ready, and we got them that day. If we would have played again, who knows what would have happened?
Right.
But the one thing that I always will remember about the game, Jimmy, is after it ended, everybody, like my classmates and any Hudson's like you could literally stone's throw away, as you know.
Right.
I mean, we had a lot of people there, and they came out on the floor. And it got scary because we were underneath it.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it got scary because you almost couldn't catch your breath. And I always think about that when I see like a game where they run out, like in baseball, they run out when they win a big game, a guy pitches a no hitter, or in basketball you win a championship. I always think about that game, the county final in '75 when we were on the floor, and it got a little scary under there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I probably almost vividly remember that more than anything about the game.
Yeah, and the thing that I remember about the game as a fan is I was sitting upstairs, and they were worried about a possibility of like say an altercation taking place. So they asked the people to file in and out like in an orderly fashion. And I remember it took us actually an hour to get out of the armory. That's how bad it was. Like people going one by one down the stairs, and I'm like going, God, how am I going to ever get home from here? It was.
I don't remember. I don't remember that, but I do remember being.
Well, you don't remember because you weren't upstairs, but we were up. Yeah, exactly. I was upstairs like 2 rows from the roof, so
Yeah.
But I vividly remember the game, and vividly remember, because I'm, I grew up with my best friend in the world is John Rochford, so his 2 older brothers were Danny and Pat, and they were both on that team. So so I mean,
good players too.
Good, Danny. As a matter of fact, the next year, '76, the first team All-County team in the Jersey Journal was you, Danny Rochford, Luke Griffin, Chuck Wilt, And I forget the fourth.
Darryl Strickland.
Darryl Strickland was it. That's it. There it is. That's the all-county team.
Ferris. What battles we had down with Ferris?
Oh, sure.
A home and away.
All right. But still,
think about the teams back then. You had Lincoln was good, Snyder was good, Dickinson was good, we were good, Prep was good. I mean, you go up and down the line. I mean, it was just tough basketball. It really was.
Marist.
Marist was terrific.
Yeah. No, so it was
St.
great. St. Mary's was unbelievable with Luke Griffin and Percy Anderson.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah,
that gym down there?
Please. You started to sweat before you even walked in the gym. Never mind, you started to think about the gym. You walk in there and you start sweating. It was really bad. Yeah. But so anyway, so you won the county championship. And what was it like to play, high school basketball with Spinacle? Did he make you a better player and vice versa?
I think absolutely. Jim made the game easier. He was 6'5". He could shoot. He could score the ball. He was a great passer. He was intelligent. It was a pleasure to play with Jim. It really was. I mean, he made the game easier.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And he played a lot of point guard actually.
Yep.
And we had a nice combo. We kind of played off each other. We knew we had a good feel because we played in grade school with each other and against each other some. So I think he kind of knew my game. I knew Jim's game, and we'd talk about it. Obviously in school all day. You see, and it's just it was really good. When you're playing with really good players, it makes the game easier.
Sure,
it really does.
Okay,
it really does.
All right, so then Spinacle goes off to Duke. You're left there, and how much did you feel like, okay, a lot of the pressure is on me now because Spinacle is gone, but you also lost some other key pieces from that team the year before, right? Didn't Steve O'Brien also graduate the year before?
No, Steve was our year.
Steve was your year, okay.
Yeah,
and Karugan was with you too, right?
Yeah, Karugan, and so we had a nice team coming back.
Okay.
The only thing is, I can remember this game like it was yesterday. We were in a dogfight with Ferris to see who's going to win the South, and we get Ferris at home, and I pick up 4 fouls in the first half, and the fourth one was the dumbest foul I ever committed in my life. I reached over a guy in our zone. Rocky went to his zone to try to protect me, and I make this stupid foul. So he has to take me out of the game, and I come back in the second half. I'm playing like I'm on eggs, and we wind up losing to them, and then that's why we lost to South Hudson and didn't play for the county that year. Okay. But we made it up by going and beating Christian Brothers down there
with Billy Paterno, correct? Right?
Well, Billy was 4 years. We played against them my first year at Hudson.
Oh, okay.
But
who was on that CBA team that you beat down and you won the championship in Jan with Jim, right?
Yeah, we won in '76. We won the state title at Brookdale Community College.
Oh, Brookdale, okay.
CBA. We played Holy Spirit from I don't know where they're from.
Absecon.
Yeah. Absecon down there. That game was over after the first quarter. We wiped them out. The best game of that was we played Bergen Catholic.
Oh yeah.
Up in Paramus somewhere, and that was a dogfight.
Right.
And if it wasn't for Tommy and Steve, and I think Karugan had a pretty good game too. They boxed and won me. I don't know. I had to check. I don't even know if you can check. Didn't score very many. And actually, Coach Smith was at that game. I thought after that game he wouldn't even want me at Carolina. And Steve and Tom Clark really stepped up, hit shots, and we won a dogfight against them.
Right, I remember that game very well too. So that was
we go down to Brookdale next couple of days, and I'm telling you, we wiped them out.
Yep.
It wasn't even a game.
And CBA was ranked number 1 in the state, and you destroyed them. You won by about 28 points, and they were number 1 in the state. And you and somebody named O'Corin had a great game against CBA too. Correct me if I'm wrong. What you have, 35, 36, something like that, right?
Had a few, but then Rocky pulled it out. He didn't. The last quarter, I don't think any starter played.
Yeah.
I don't think,
No, because you were winning by so much. So
yeah, we got him good that day.
There's no question. All right. So that was So think about your career. You have to be one of the only Hudson Catholic basketball players to win both a county and a state championship in your career. And for a while, it was the only county championship for, I think, 32 years. So, I mean.
Yeah, till Nick gets there, and he wins them every year now.
Right, yeah. Last year was the only year they didn't win. Yeah. But still, there was 32 years they went without it. And,
right.
And what, you know, think about that. Do you think about the legacy at all of being able to win both a county and a state championship at Hudson Catholic and realize how tough that is?
You know, I do think about it sometimes, especially you get older. You think about, you see your friends, like friends I talk to ex-teammates or friends I went to school with, Jack Cole, I can name a million of them. And sometimes you get to talk about that. And you think about it, it hits you that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
without question.
Now, if they had it back in our day, if they had it where you played in that tournament of champions, maybe that would have been bigger. But there was 7 state champions, if I remember correctly.
Right.
You know,
3 parochials, 4 groups. So,
4 groups. So if we would have gotten a TOC, then maybe won that. Then that might have been. But winning the Hudson County Championship was by far a thrill. Okay. Oh my gosh!
All right. So now talk about your senior year in high school, and now all the big colleges are coming knocking on the door and coming to see you play, and they're recruiting you. What was that like, being a kid from Hudson Gardens and having people like, say, Dean Smith and Al McGuire and Lefty Drizel and all these people coming to the door and checking to see whether or not you would come and visit? And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it a battle that there was somebody else that was in the running for you in North Carolina, and then North Carolina ended up winning out because Coach Smith came to see you a couple times?
Well, what iced me with Carolina, Jim, was the visit there. I don't know. I visited 5 schools, and they were all good schools. Duke, including Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina, who had very good teams back in the 70s.
Right.
But I go to North Carolina, just something clicked, and I got home from that visit. I remember talking to my mother, and I said, "Mom, I think I want to go to North Carolina." She says, "Well, at first she thought she didn't understand how scholarship worked." And she goes, "Well, Mike, I'm glad you like it, but I don't know. We can't afford to send you." I said, "No, Mom, it's a scholarship."
Okay. I never heard that story.
You can go. So that was the icing on the cake right there. The visit. And Eddie Fogler, who's one of the assistant coaches.
Oh yeah.
He probably remember. He was up a lot,
Right. And, there's no question. So you see, I've heard from 4 different people that they were the most instrumental in you going to North Carolina. And obviously, I think you could probably know the 4. Stymie, Eddie Fogler, oh, God, who's the other one I'm missing? Oh, damn. But anyway, and our beloved friend, God rest him, Eddie Ford, known as the Fa.
Yeah.
So they all laid claim that they were the reason why you went to North Carolina. You're now telling me it was definitely Fogler?
It was Eddie Fogler and Coach Smith. They and those boys. If I said I wanted to go anywhere else, they would have said, "You go wherever you want to go." They weren't twist them arm and do anything.
Okay.
No, it just fit. When I was down there, it's something clicked that it was the place that this is for you. And it was just, I guess,
a Jersey City boy in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It doesn't sound like it's a fit. But
and I'll tell you, Jimmy, I got down there and I wasn't happy. It was just different, man. It was
different from what you were used to. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Going to where I lived at Granville Towers, it was called Hudson Gardens. The people were different. They spoke different. Everything was a little slower.
Yep.
It didn't go well early. I remember, this is a true story.
Was there any thought of you leaving?
Well, I remember the main street in Chapel Hill is Franklin Street.
Okay.
And, we drove down, my sister and her husband, Jack, they drove me down with my mother. And we went down there. And I remember coming into town. It was kind of a straight shot. Like, you just go down the turnpike to 95.
Yep.
You get 85. You just pretty much take it right into Chapel Hill.
Yep.
And it was like, I remember we calculated it was like 560 miles. So after a couple weeks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not talking to really anybody. I had a roommate from Rich Yannick, who was from Ohio. He wasn't happy. We sit in the room and we were like, what the heck is going on here? Blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden I got up one day and I walked down to Franklin Street. I said, Jersey City is 560 miles that way. I says, I think I can make it. I was going to run home. That's how homesick I was. I know, that's like, oh gosh. And then, I had a girlfriend home and all that. And so it was tough. But then once the season started, things kicked into place and things worked out.
Okay. And so was there anybody that talked you out of it, or you just did it on your own? Once basketball started, that's what took over?
Yeah, once basketball took over, I had no free time and you think about it. But then once you start playing, that's what you did. You played ball, you went to school, obviously. But then, it got more comfortable, and then we started winning, and season went all the way to the final game that year. So.
Yeah, well, don't jump too far ahead. Let's talk about the first blue and white game. It was your first inter-squad scrimmage. And I heard that there were two people that came down there to visit and watch the game, and one of them ended up officiating. And that's our friend the Fa, but also Gibby Lewis, I guess, I heard, was also on that trip as well. What was it? Go ahead.
The late, great Fa, who became very close with the staff at Carolina.
Without question.
And would always bring the people in the office bagels and from up north, they didn't have bagels like that down there. Anyway, Coach Smith lets the Fa ref the blue-white game. Now it's a blue-white game. They split up the team, right? Jimmy.
And you're a freshman, right? This is your first North Carolina experience as a player, right?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories of all time.
Go ahead.
Now, the blue-white game, it's right after the football game on a Saturday afternoon. So anyway, Carmichael holds 10,000, just 10,000 people. Now, first of all, I can't believe this because it's a scrimmage. Like, something's wrong here. 10,000 people watch a scrimmage. The Fa refs with another ref and puts on a show.
Right.
He's calling fouls. Offensive foul.
Oh, his block charge call was impeccable. Oh my God.
He called a charge from under the rim, ended up out by half court. The people, they didn't know what hit them. Like, they didn't see anything like this. They were like shocked. And the best story is, now Phil Ford, All-American, first team All-American.
Yep.
Great player, great guy. Actually got to know the Fa very well over the years.
Yep.
Anyway, so the Fa in the game calls a travel on Phil Ford. I don't think it was, but especially 10,000 people didn't think it was, so they booed him. So as the ball's being taken out, Fa's over by the half-court line, and Coach Smith didn't coach the game. He was taking notes. And Coach Guthridge and Coach Fogel coached the respective teams. So Coach Smith says I'm taking the ball out. I hear it. Coach Smith says to Ed, I don't know if that was a travel.
Yeah, I could hear him say it. Ed, I don't know if that was a travel.
So the Fa says, Coach, that'll be enough out of you. Any more from you, and I'm going to have to toss you.
Right.
So Coach Smith, not to be outdone, says, well, Ed, if you toss me, you're not getting your plane ticket home. Oh, it's a classic.
Right. Wasn't it also, too, that the Fa threatened to tee up Coach Smith, and he wasn't coaching in the game, and the Fa had no idea?
Not only was he going to tee him up, he was going to toss him.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Ed?
Oh, it was funny.
Ed, that'll close to your plane ticket home. Oh, God.
Oh, man. Classic.
All right, so you ended up having an incredible freshman year. You might have been the best freshman in the country. Your freshman year in college, you ended up averaging, I think, 15 a game. you beat Duke in the ACC championship game. I remember because it was up against Spinacle, and you had 21 points. Also, what about before I get into that? How about the one game when you played Duke, and it was a really big game. It was on a Saturday night, and it was back then that you couldn't watch every single college basketball game, so it was being syndicated on TBS as like the game of the week. And you're playing Duke on a Saturday night, I think, in Cameron Indoor. And it was supposed to be a great game, you know, the two of the top 4 teams in the country playing, whatever, all right? And you guys won the opening tip and went to Four Corners.
Well, actually, Duke won the opening tip, and Jim scored.
Oh, that's right. So it was 2-0. Right.
So we're 2-0, and we stalled.
Right.
And we didn't score at half. The game at the half was 7-0.
Right.
And then we came out and played with them in the second half. The score was 47-40.
Right.
So, I wasn't, we weren't too happy about the way that thing started and ended, but, that was a philosophy we had going in, and we tried to do it right, and it didn't work.
Okay.
But the following week, though, that was my junior year. The following week, we played.
Oh, that was your junior year. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, Duke wasn't really good when I was a freshman.
Okay.
At Carolina, they were just starting to build up.
Yeah, but they won. They played you in the ACC championship game.
No, that was the same year. My junior year, we played them and beat them. My first year, we beat Virginia for the ACC championship. But that was one of the low points for us, was that game. But the next week, we played them in the Greensboro in the ACC final, and we beat them. It was a really hard-fought game too. Really hard-fought game.
All right, let's go back down to 77 as a freshman. You go to the Final Four with Carolina, and in the Final Four game, you scored at that time your career high 31 against UNLV. Phil Ford must have had about 11 assists strictly to you, and everything was the backdoor cut, and you were just catching the ball and going in, and you ended up with 31, which ironically was the number that you wore on your back.
On back, The thing is, Vegas played such a tenacious defense. They really overplayed. We had I would say at least 20 plus turnovers that game. But like I said before, Phil Ford was so good. He had the knack to get in the lane, and if you cut, he would find you. And all you had to do was lay it in. Nothing's ever easy on the floor, but if someone was going to score 31, that was an easy 31, because I was a recipient of some very, very good passes by Phil and John Cuse and other guys I played with. So
yeah, but 31 in the Final Four game is still 31. I don't care how good the passes were. You had to put them in the basket, and so that was a great game by you. And then now you go to the championship game in Atlanta, and who do you see in the championship game but Marquette? And tell the story about how you and Jimmy Boylan had a conversation in the St. Joe's courtyard that summer beforehand, playing in the St. Joe's Summer League, and you said something to him like, "All right, I'll see you in the Final Four." And what was that like?
Jimmy was, he was going to Marquette, and he was at Marquette, and I'm going to Carolina, and we played how many games at St. Joe's? We talked about it before, and then everything was ending. He was going to school like a day or two later, so was I. I remember shaking his hand, and we'll see you in Atlanta. Like they were going, and we knew, we looked at each other like that. I mean.
But you didn't think that was a possibility, did you?
I really didn't, but we were kind of confident guys,
Okay.
But we didn't think.
No, Boylan was cocky.
We could have played each other in the first round. We didn't know.
Yeah, but, Boylan wasn't confident. He was cocky. Yes. You were somewhat on the confident side. You weren't as cocky as Boylan.
But as it turns out, who do we meet in the finals? And to be honest, probably was. How can I say this? The teams we beat to play Marquette, I thought were a lot better than Marquette.
Yeah.
And we beat them and lose to Marquette. That's how the game is,
Yeah.
We played Purdue in the first round and just snuck a victory out from them. We played Notre Dame on
St. Patty's Day.
St. Patty's Day. We're down 15 and came back and beat them.
Yeah.
We played Kentucky, who won it the next year against Jimmy and them.
Right.
They were terrific. and then we played Vegas, who was arguably the best team we played in the whole tournament, and somehow got by them. And we played Marquette, a very good team. Paul Ellis, Jimmy Butchley. I mean, they had some Bernard Toon. They had some really good players. Jerome Whitehead, and they beat us. And it was, and that was that. And never. My first year, we make it to the finals. You think, okay, that'll be like that every year. Never made it back close. It's the NCAA tournament. It was only 32 teams.
Right.
I mean, we made the tournament, but we never really got anywhere near back to the Final Four.
Okay. But how wild was that in 1977, it's the NCAA championship game. There were 10 players on the floor, and 2 of them are from St. Joe's Courtyard in Jersey City. And although they put Boylan down as, I don't know, Point Pleasant, New Jersey, or whatever it was on the graphic on the screen, really? And I was a little upset by that. But how ironic, how wild is it? And I've spoken to both you about it and to Jimmy about it. I wrote a story about it when it was, I guess, the 30th anniversary of it. How wild was it back then that there were 2 kids from the same courtyard playing in the Final Four?
Yeah, it was. I don't know how to explain it. It was weird and different, but you kind of lose that a little bit because the game itself, you're playing for the championship.
Right.
This is what it's all about, and so you kind of put that away. And the thing is, I remember Burroughs took a charge on me. Like I was getting the ball, and then when I turned, Burroughs was there and knocked into it. The ref called the charge, and I remember helping him up. And if anybody else but Jimmy, I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I do remember that part. I really don't know much about that game. I really don't.
Well, Boylan said after the game was over that the first person he went to go see after the game was you. He didn't celebrate with his teammates. He didn't go, jump up and down and stand on line to go cut down the nets. The first person he sought out on the floor in the Omni was you. And how much did that mean to you? That he
it meant a lot. It really did, because he did. We stayed out there. I don't know if they do that now. We stayed out there. They had you to watch whatever they give you, and then they honor the team that won. So we were sitting on the bench. I remember Burroughs came over, and I was sitting next to Walter Davis, my teammate, and I get up. I remember pretty good now, and obviously said, you guys, good luck, and hugged and all that. And I said, I'll see you back when we get back home and all. And to this day, whenever I see Burroughs, he always lets me know who won that game.
Yeah, and so do I too.
Yeah, because you're a Marquette guy.
Right, yeah, so do I. I wasn't there then, but, I think that had a little bit to do with me making the decision, as did Jimmy. He sang the praises of Marquette and told me that I wouldn't make a bad decision going there. It's just, he just said, make sure you dress warm, and I had no idea what he meant about that until I got there. And now they in Milwaukee they have 2 seasons, winter and July 4th. I mean, that's it. I mean, it is unbelievably cold. But other than that, he helped. He was instrumental in me choosing Marquette.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. And the other thing about the last part about that was Al McGuire's last game. He never lost another game.
That's right.
And he won the championship. How good is that? To win it. As your last coach, the last game you ever coached.
And he already announced it that he was retiring. At the
right.
He knew.
And I got to meet him up in Milwaukee with Bill Raftery when I was with the Nets. I was broadcasting then, and I remember having lunch with Al. We talked a little bit about the game. He was a character. He really was. And the 3 of us talking basketball was really fun.
Too bad I didn't have a tape recorder with that. That would have been hysterical.
The stories.
Please. I don't know. There's no way you would have got a word in edgewise without.
It was good to listen, just to listen to Bill and Al just talk. It was great. It was nice. Yeah. Really good time.
All right.
Really good time.
So then you had a great career at North Carolina, 2-time All-American in both your junior and your senior year, All ACC 3 times. I mean, so you felt like you were ready for the NBA after having that kind of college career, correct?
Yeah. I wanted it. Again, it was only 20 teams, but I never stopped working. Always had a fixed goal to make the league. Really, after my first 2 years in college, I never even thought about it before that.
Okay.
And then, going into my junior year, I'm thinking, okay, if you keep working, who knows what might happen. And Coach Smith was instrumental. He always thought he'd always check in with you. He said, Mike, if I thought you were going to go high in the draft, I would suggest maybe you leave early. And so it didn't happen that way. So after senior year, he had told me you would be a first-round pick somewhere. Okay. And then you do your due diligence, you visit teams, whatever you did back then, and it worked out.
All right, now, as the draft is going on, in your heart of hearts, are you saying, boy, oh boy, I know the Nets got 3 first-round draft picks. I hope to God that I'm – oh, no, did they only have 2 that year? Did you have 2 or 3?
Just 2.
Just the 2?
No.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so in your heart of hearts, you're saying, okay, there's the number 6 pick overall. I hope to God that that the Nets are the ones that take me, or at that point did you not care?
I didn't really care. There was speculation you go to Nets, speculation you go to other teams. Until the night before the draft, Kevin Lockery was the coach of the Nets. And I got a call. There's no cell phones then and all that garbage.
Right.
Phone rang. My mother picked it up, said, Michael, it's for you. I went over, got on the other end, said, hi, Mike, I'm Kevin Lockery. I just want you to know we're going to draft you tomorrow.
All right, so you knew beforehand.
The night before.
Okay.
Said, thanks, Coach. I'll see you tomorrow. Went to the draft. I was over in New York. It wasn't nothing like it is now.
No way. Yeah, no.
A couple guys in a room, and
right.
Larry O'Brien was the commissioner, and he called your name, and up there, shook his hand, and you left.
Right. Okay. All right. So what was that like to be a Jersey City kid getting drafted by the team that's 6 miles away? And you couldn't have asked for any better script, could you?
It was great for me. It was great. I got to stay home. And matter of fact, for a year, I lived, actually a year and a half, I lived in the projects with my mother.
No! Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I never see. There's something I never knew. All right.
Yeah, it's true. We go to APA where we practiced. Quick shot. Actually, we played my first year at Rutgers, so hopped on a turnpike, went down to Rutgers, played. Sometimes I brought it, sometimes I didn't. And it was a lot of fun. I actually had a pretty good year my rookie year. We didn't win a lot of games. Was healthy. I think I played all but one game. I remember bumped knees with Phil Hubbard, the guy I worked with the Wizards.
Yep.
And I thought my career was over, but it was just a knee on knee. Whenever I see that, I always cringe now because it's very painful.
Yeah.
Game and it was a great year for me. Other than we took a lot of lumps because we were very young. Yeah. And I got to know Mike Jaminski, a competitor of mine. We got drafted same right there in the draft 6 and 7.
Yep, back to back.
Became a very good friend to this day, and other friends from the teams. And actually, when we moved to the Meadowlands, the Nets, we had some pretty good teams.
Absolutely, we were going to get you jumping ahead a little bit, but 1983. Or was it maybe 84.
No, it was 83.
83, the Sixers were the defending champions of the league, and you guys beat them in the best of 5?
The best of 5 back then, first round.
Right.
But only 6 teams went.
Right, and you had at that team, the net team was very good. You had Michael Ray Richardson, you had Darryl Dawkins, yourself, Jaminski,
Buck Williams and
Albert King. Wow,
good players.
That was a great team.
And the ironic part about that year, Jim, was we played the best of 5. We won the first 2 games in Philly.
Right.
Which was 2 major upsets.
Right. You lost the 2 games in the Meadowlands. And then you went back down to Philly and won game 5. Yep.
Yeah, went down there. I mean, you can't make that up.
No.
And we won a very competitive series after that with the Milwaukee Bucks. We lost in 6 games. But we gained a thing. The only thing is when I was with the Nets, we were in the same division as Philly and Boston.
Right, every year.
Both of those teams would win 60 games. I mean, where are we going? I mean, it's just unbelievable, those teams.
But you still were able to knock off the defending NBA champion 76ers with Moses Malone and Dr. J.
Dr. J, and
in the first round of the NBA playoffs. That must have been something incredible.
That was a highlight. Back then, when you looked at it after a while, I said, wow, we really accomplished a lot by doing that.
Right. And that was a wild team to play with, wasn't it, Michael?
Yes, it was. There were some characters on that team, mainly Michael Ray and Darryl.
Yep.
good guys, good teammates, but just really, you know, just really strong personalities and stuff. And then unfortunately, the drugs became for Michael Ray.
Right,
really
it killed him. Killed him as a player, no question.
Really hurt him, and I think he was the first guy banned from the league because of the drug issue.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, you talk about that series, Jimmy. He was the best player on the floor,
without question. Without question.
Yeah, you're talking Moses and Doc and those guys. He really showcased his abilities back then.
Yeah, well, at that time, I was working for the Daily Record in Morristown, and I was covering the Nets full time. And so I used to see you all the time. And I remember before that series, we were figuring out that if the Nets won, you were going to play the Bucks, and if the Knicks won, they were going to play the Celtics. The Celtics. Yeah. Right? So Greg Garber, who now works for ESPN, we decided that if that happened, because I went to school in Milwaukee and he went to school in Boston, that if that happened, we were going to trade beats, and he was going to cover the Nets and I was going to cover the Knicks. Oh, no, vice versa. He was going to cover the net. No, I was going to cover the Nets in Milwaukee. He was going to cover the Knicks in Boston. And lo and behold, what happened to me? I was leaving to get on the plane to go to Detroit for Game 5 of the playoff against Detroit, the famous Bernard King and Isaiah Thomas war. And I was in the Colonet Diner. And as I was leaving the Colonet, I put my hand on the door to leave, and my hand slid off the door, and I went through the window, and I tore up my hand, and I had to have major reconstructive surgery.
Oh, wow!
And I wasn't able to cover. I wasn't able to cover anything. So, but
wow,
yeah,
you never told me that.
Yeah, that sucked. So, and then, but I got to see a lot of your games over the 7 years that you played with the Nets. And that must have been a lot of fun for you, right? Except for your comp ticket list must have been ridiculous every night, asking all your teammates, "Can I get your tickets? Can I get your tickets?" Because people must have been hounding you for tickets back then.
Well, after a while, it kind of stopped. You know, you do what you do. You try to get them, and the Meadowlands was so big. They were really some of them were the greatest tickets in the world, but it wasn't bad at all.
No? Okay.
Nah, it wasn't that bad.
All right.
It wasn't that bad.
All right. So, were you disappointed that the Nets ended up trading you, or did you know at that point, okay, your game was deteriorating a little? Yeah,
it was. It was. I was starting to become just a so-so player. I could see. I know. I knew it could happen. It could happen at any time. There was rumors. A lot of those years. But you get traded. You try to make the best of it, and that was that. And then I could tell that my career it looked like it was going to be over. Because you could just tell. You're not playing a lot. And things happen, and then you got to look to see what you're going to do after that.
Okay. But then, incredibly, correct me if I'm wrong, you got traded back to the Nets.
Yeah,
and you finished your career with the Nets, right?
Yes, I did, which was nice. It was nice. The only thing I tore my hamstring.
Yeah.
That year,
and that was it, right?
That you just didn't get. If you pull it, you can make it better. But once you tear that muscle, it hurts to this day sometimes.
I mean, really? Okay.
It's one of those injuries that could just, not that I'm playing anymore, but it lets you know. You tore me. I'll just let you. So I'm going to give you some pain now.
Okay.
But, after I played, I got into broadcasting, which I really liked.
Yeah, and who was the first job you got in broadcasting? Do you remember?
Well, it was the guy I'm talking to on this phone. You, Mr. Haig, got me involved with college radio broadcasting.
That's correct. And you know how you got that job? Is because I screwed up. I used to do the color commentary for the St. Peter's games. And I screwed up. I thought the mic was off, and I said "stupid ass shot" and it went over the air. And Bill Stein heard that and got wind of it or whatever. And I remember him kicking the door open to Yanatelli as he's coming in, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "His broadcaster career is over. It's over. Wow. His career is over." So then he told me that I had to go find somebody to replace me. So I'm like going, well, who in the world can I get to replace me that could do basketball analysis? And I reached out and I called you, and that's how you started with St. Peter's. You didn't do many games at St. Peter's, but
No.
right? You did that.
I remember
think you
we took
did
a
the
ride
most
to
of the year.
Monmouth. Did we take a ride to Monmouth?
Yes.
We went down there. Yeah. Did a game at Fairleigh Dickinson, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I remember. We bounced around a little bit. We had a good time.
Yep.
We had a good time.
Yep. Especially you and I. And then, and then you got into broadcasting with the Nets. And how good was that? Like you weren't a player, but you were still close to the game.
Yeah, it's close to the game, and had some good partners over the years. I worked with Howard David. I worked with Iron Eagle. Really, really good announcers, and I enjoyed the game. I got to do a lot of interviews. I remember, I could tell you this, I remember doing radio, and Jordan and the Bulls come to town, and knew Michael, obviously from North Carolina a little bit, when I did a nice interview with him for a halftime show on the radio. You know, you tape it, and I did it. Michael was great. Go back upstairs, got the old, what were those recorded, Marantz or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get ready to give it to the producer. I said, I have this ready for halftime. He puts it down. He checks on it. I hit the wrong button.
Oh my God! There was nothing there.
Nothing there. So I said, "Geez, Michael's gonna kill me, but I'm gonna ask him." Sure enough, I go down. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Mike, you're not gonna believe this, but I hit a wrong button, and it didn't come out. Would you mind?" It wasn't as good as the first. It never is. But that son of a gun did the interview again for me, and I always never have seen him. I don't really see him that much anymore. Whenever I would see him, I always used to thank him for that.
Okay.
I mean, he went out of the way to do another interview, like a half hour before the game.
All right. So you ended up being an announcer with the Nets for about 5-6 years, right?
Yeah, at least 6 years. And then actually, luck was on my side. It was that lockout year. And the Nets get off to a terrible start. John Calipari's the coach, who I got to know very well. And Don Casey was one of his assistants.
Yep.
And wouldn't you know it, we're up in Toronto, and they fired John. They fired Coach Cal, and it was sad in a way because I got to know John. I think he's a very good coach too. It was just that 2 or 3 of the point guards we had that year were all hurt. And Kendall Gill had to play the point guard, and it was tough. And so after that, Cal gets fired. Casey gets the job.
Yep.
And they fired some of the assistants also. So Casey had it on his mind who he wanted to hire, and he says, "Listen, could I get you to come on the bench for maybe tonight and tomorrow? We play the game back in New Jersey." And I said, "Sure, Casey. I'll help you any way I can," because I got to know Coach Casey. He was a great guy.
Great guy.
You know, one of those salt of the earth types. You know. So I worked with him that game, and I'm telling you, as a player, Jimmy, as a player, and as a broadcaster, the game, I could tell how the game was going. You know, the speed wasn't a factor in the game. How fast the game is, how quick the players are, how good they are. I sit there as an assistant coach the first time, and I couldn't keep up with the game.
Really?
I'm telling you, yes, I couldn't keep up with the game. The game just moved too fast for me.
And what was your assignment? What were you supposed to do during the course of the game?
Case just said, just keep an eye on foul trouble. I remember Rich Salatri, a good friend of mine. He was a strength and conditioning coach.
Right.
I came out on the bench. I got no paper. I got no pen. I got nothing. Like
you didn't know what to do. Okay.
And he puts down the roster for us, and he says, keep an eye on the fouls. And that's what I did. And I just tried to see what was working and what wasn't working. And I would say to Case, Case, maybe we should do this. I never got the chance because I couldn't keep up with the game.
Wow.
It was embarrassing in a sense. And now we come back home, and we got crushed up in Toronto. We come back home, we play Dallas. And so this is, it's going to be it because Case said, 2 games, and then whoever else was coming in was coming in. And actually, Jimmy Lynam and Eddie Jordan, ironically enough, were the 2 assistants, but then he was going to that 3 assistants then.
Right.
And so we do the game, and after that game, we're going to Chicago. It was 3 in a row because of the lockout. So I'm going now thinking I'm going to be on radio. And whatever. Long story short, whoever Case was going to hire, I didn't know to this day. I never asked him. He never told me. It didn't work out. So he said, "Would you mind coaching for the rest of the year?" I said, "Absolutely."
Okay.
You know, and then the game started to get better. And my job then was player development, what they would call now. I would be out with the players, you know, after practice, before the games. You know, they shoot before the games. I was out there with them, and it really was enjoyable for me. And not only that, it got me in better shape.
Yeah.
You know, but I really enjoyed it. And then Case gets a job for the next year and says, "You want to stay?" I said, "Absolutely." So my broadcasting career went out and coaching career started.
Right. And then you stayed, 5 years with the Nets? And then you developed a great friendship with Eddie Jordan.
Yeah.
And then when Eddie got the job with the Wizards, that's when you went there.
He said, "Why don't you come down?" Yeah, and I really didn't want to leave New Jersey, just Jersey's home. But if I wanted to be a coach, I knew that's how it works. That's what I did. And Eddie was a good friend, and we were a teammate, you know, my first year with the Nets. But I got to give a lot of credit to Byron Scott also. Byron comes in for Casey, and Ron Thorne takes over as GM and stuff. And Byron hired me. I thought for sure I would be going back broadcasting or something. But Byron, and he hired me and Eddie from that staff, which was great. That usually doesn't happen, you know.
And then you were an assistant coach with those great runs, right? You went to the finals 2 years in a row, right?
Yeah, we lost to the Lakers, and you know, with Kobe and Shaq.
Right.
What an unfortunate tragedy that is.
Unbelievable.
And then the next year we play San Antonio and lose it to them in 6. So we made the finals. Right. Jason Kidd came on. He was a terrific player.
And how exciting was those years with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin and Keith Van Horn? I mean, that was a really, really talented team, and and Jason Williams. I mean, that was a fun team. There was no question.
Yeah, it really was. Boy, we played with Kidd. We played an up-tempo style.
Yep.
I mean, he'd get 8 or 9 rebounds a game too. Kenyon was a rebound. We had a guy named Tom McCullough and Jason Collins were our center.
The dip. Todd McCullough, Big Dipper. That's the
big dip. He had great hands. I mean, once we got the ball, I've never been involved with a team that could change, you know, the length of the court in a hurry like that.
Yep.
I mean, Terry Kidd was running the wing, Jefferson running, Keith running. I mean, Jason Kidd bringing the ball up. Oh, my goodness. Kenyon Martin could go from rim to rim like nobody I've ever seen as a 6'9" guy. And we were tough to beat. I mean, we guarded, too. We had defensive-minded players. Kidd started with Kidd.
Yep. Lucius Harris.
Yeah, Lucius could guard.
He could guard any guard in the country.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We were good offensively. We were really good defensively.
Yep.
You know, that's how you win. You know, as Pat Riley would say, that's how you.
And tough as nails too. Like that team. Team with Kenyon Martin and with Jack Haley. Even though he'd come in the game, he got like more fouls than points. He'd come in and just hurt people. And Michael Cage was on that, and he would hurt people too. I mean, it was
tough guys.
Real tough guys. Real tough guys. But a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah.
And obviously damn good.
It's always fun when you're winning, right?
Yeah.
A lot of games, over 50 games, which is good.
Yeah. And I traveled a lot with that team as well. So I went a lot of team got to know that team really, really well. And they did really, really, really well. So there's no question.
Yeah.
So but then you Eddie Jordan got the job at the Wizards, and he asked you to come down there.
Yeah,
and that must have been a really tough choice because your daughter was just growing up at that point, right? Wasn't she young?
Yeah, we took her out she was like in 3rd grade.
Wow.
2nd or 3rd grade, which is hard. You know, it was a decision you make, you know. Then we go down there for 6 years, and you had really some good years there. The Wizards had been down a lot, but after the first year, we make the playoffs next 4 years in a row.
Yep.
And then we get off to a bad start that 6th year, and they cleaned house, and then we had a year in Philly after that.
Right.
And that was a perfect storm for us. Unfortunately, with, you know, some injuries and things didn't work out that way. And Philly's a tough town.
Yeah, no, there's no question. All right, so then for a while there, you were out of it, right? You were. What were you doing for about 4 years?
I was doing the high school games, Jim. I used to see. I got a chance to do high school games with Verizon, Fies One.
Okay.
And really, it was fun. I love. You know, got to know some of these high school kids. Got to know some of these coaches that are characters out there. Good guys, good coaches. And did that for a few years, and then out of nowhere,
then Eddie got hired in Rutgers.
And we spent, you know, he didn't get enough credit. I mean, not only he took it under bad circumstances. What happened prior, I forget what happened now, but it was guys left, they run for bed, whatever that happened. And first year, I wasn't there.
Well, Mike Rice, wasn't it the Mike Rice incident?
Yeah, I think it was, and whatever happened with him. And,
he threw the basketball as players, and they released the videotape of it, and he got fired. They got fired, and they needed to hire somebody with a Rutgers background to change the face, and that's how Eddie got the job.
Yeah, and one the highlight was when we beat a third-ranked team or second-ranked team in the nation, Wisconsin, one of those years, and that was a big win for us. And then things, it was just tough. We went into the Big Ten, and we weren't ready for the Big Ten.
No.
And we took our lumps. They won a couple games here and there, and I'm happy to see now that they're really, after 4 years, I think 4 or 5 years since Eddie got out of there, that they really turned it around. I'm happy for them because they took their lumps.
All right. Well, Peichel done a very, very good job. He's got a good staff. He's gotten a great amount of recruits. I mean,
that's what you got to get players.
Got to get players.
It's tough getting players back after what happened with the situation before Eddie took over, and there was some dry periods there. But Rutgers is on the map now. They're ranked. They'll make the tournament, and they can make some noise.
There's no question. They got a very good team. There's no question.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
All right, so you're a couple of years removed from now basketball. What have you been doing recently in terms of keeping busy, or do you feel that you're officially retired now?
Yeah, I'm retired now. I didn't do the high school games this year. I had a lot of commitments with family things and other things, so I didn't want to just do a game here or there. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And then, so I kind of took the year off from that. Hopefully we'll get back into it next year. Okay. And, just see what happens, just take one day at a time.
Okay.
So that's about it.
All right. So, but all in all, you're still living in New Jersey, right up in Bergen County?
Bergen County, yeah.
Okay.
Love it up there.
All right. And you can still keep your finger on the pulse of Jersey City. I don't think there's a day goes by that somebody's not contacting you about something in Jersey City, right?
I got down to see Nick a little bit early before the season started, and I'm definitely going to come down and see a game or two. I love to go down to Hudson, watch his kids play. I think Nick does a great job with them. And like you said before, he's won a lot of county championships. They didn't get it last year, but they'll be in the hunt again this year.
There's no question. He's got a guard who is brilliant. Zion Cruz is only a sophomore, but he's a player and a half. He's really good.
Certainly is.
All right.
Yeah.
To sum it all up, Mike, how great of a life has this been for a guy who is now going to be 62 next week, right?
You ready for Social Security?
Yeah, pretty soon. All right, but you think about a guy from Hudson Gardens who learned how to play on those metal nets with the metal backboards, and had such an incredible career, incredible run in the game of basketball. And how fortunate do you feel that you've been able to have this kind of life, being a kid from Jersey City?
Very blessed, Jimmy. We had humble background and beginnings, but we learned how to appreciate everything that we ever got. We worked for everything we got to, I think. And my mother she was a good Italian woman, boy.
Give your mother some credit. What was your mother's first name?
Rose.
Yep.
And Mom, she would always say, "Listen, Michael, listen. If you have your health, you have everything." I mean, what better advice is that?
Right.
Come on. That's what it's all about. You got your health, you got everything.
I wrote a story about your mother soon after you got drafted, and the title of the article was the Rose of Hudson Gardens. That's and talked about what it was like to raise you. And she said you were a little bit of a handful, a little bit.
Yes.
He was a little bit of a handful. He wasn't like his brother.
Yeah.
But your mother loved you to death, and she was nobody was more proud of you than she was. So
yeah, she's a good woman.
Good woman. The thing that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, Mike, is that you are the uncle of Jack Baker, who was the longtime Hoboken baseball coach, and now, unfortunately, because he's now become a principal, he no longer could be a coach. But how proud are you of your nephew with the career he's had?
Yeah, and I'm also, you might know the name, my niece, my sister's oldest girl, her son is Mike Bello.
Oh, sure.
And
Vinny's a great guy, and Michael's now going to go to Georgia to play baseball.
Auburn.
He's going to Auburn. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Vinny's going to kill me.
He's a good player, and he's got two brothers who are good players. One is a football player at Assumption,
right?
And youngest Dominic is a up and coming player too. So, and then I have a niece who's a 12. My other sister's daughter, Madison. She's a tall girl. She loves basketball. She's a good player also. So we might have some. You won't know by name, but there's some talent coming up in the young ages, maybe. Okay,
there we go. And how old is your daughter now?
My daughter's 25.
Oh God! And where is she now?
About 3 months. She's 3 months from being a pediatrician.
Oh, that's
she's in
great.
Medical school. Yeah. So.
And where is she? What medical school?
She's at Cooper Medical School down in Camden.
Oh, okay.
She's doing well. We're really
you got to be really, really proud of her. There's no question.
Yeah. We'll have a doctor in the house.
There you go. So, but all in all, Mike, what a great life, no? And a great road that you took from Jersey City to the NBA. And it's got to be, you got to look and say, boy, it was pretty fortunate to have that kind of
absolutely. Absolutely. Blessed every day, Jim.
Beautiful.
Every day.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to me. I think this was really, really a fun trip down memory lane.
It certainly was.
And I'm glad that you were the first one that you beat Spinarkle to the punch. That means a lot. That means a lot to me personally. So, all right.
Jim,
we will be in touch, Mike. Thanks so very much again. And thanks again. You take care.
All right. Bye now. Bye.
And that was Mike O'Corin, this week's guest on the Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm Jim Haig, and we'll have another guest for you next week. So please tune in on your YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. Thanks so very much. Have a great day.